Well, we learned a lot of lessons with this COVID pandemic, and one of those is that it is important for us to be able to do business with the city and be able to do that remotely. And currently, our system doesn't allow that. So if you want a business license, at some point you're going to have to come to the city to pay for that and pick that license up. And so we've been spending the last 14 months looking at different software packages that we could purchase with our ARPA dollars that might make a difference to I think, bring us into the 21st century, so that not only can people do a better job of doing business with us, but also requests and suggestions and complaints, being able to do a better job of receiving and documenting those. But then also in between our departments where our software talks to each other. So when something happens in one department, we can transfer to another and not have to have the data entry. So it'll make us much, much more efficient. So very excited about that. We've been spending, like I said, 14 months. We think we've identified a solution to our software that we're looking to purchase. So we're in the due diligence phase now. We're going to spend some time talking to people who are using that software to make sure what we think it'll do will do for us. And my hopes would be in the next 2 or 3 months we'll pull that trigger and we'll start that process. And within a few months after that we'll be up and running, and I'll hopefully be much more successful in the way that we interact with both our residents and the business community. Yeah, so housing is a problem for us right now, right? The Chamber did their housing study a number of years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, and at that time we were about 3,000 housing units short. And so not only do we need affordable housing, but we just need housing units. And we define housing affordability as 30% of your budget goes to your cost of housing. And so that could be at any range, right? And so it's a big issue for us. It's a big need for us. And I had a great meeting this week with a company that I've been talking to for a while. They're getting ready to break ground on their first 220 multifamily units. Those will be great 2-bedroom apartment buildings with outside amenities that I think will be very appealing for people to live. But during that meeting, they also shared with me how bullish they are on Cheyenne's future and made a pledge to build 1,000 units between now and the end of the decade. So in the next 8 years, their goal is to build 1,000 units for Cheyenne. So that'll take care of a little bit of our need, but we have a lot more that we need to do when it comes to housing and affordability. Yeah, so annexations have been a big part of that. If you look at like Saddle Ridge, if you look at Sweetgrass, and if you look at Whitney Ranch, if you add those areas together, heck, that's got to be 30 or 40% of the size of the city, and they're dominated by housing. So they're making a big impact. What we're finding, though, is as fast as they're building the housing, the demand for housing is actually growing a little bit faster. And so that's our challenge. But I think as interest rates go up and as cost of housing goes up, having quality rentals that people want to live in is going to become really important. And so I think what this announcement will make a big difference in over the next 8 years of making sure that we have enough quality rental units for people to live in. Sure, the last statistics that we've seen is maybe 500 of our military members live in Colorado and they commute back and forth. So they live here, they earn their money here, but they spend their money someplace else. So if we can get our housing situation figured out, I hope that will mean that those folks might choose to come back to Cheyenne, and we'll be able to capture that economic development that goes with that. Well, we wrote in the Mayor's Minute this week that the City of Cheyenne, our governing body, our county commissioners are working on a contract with the KLWY shelter to provide what we call a low barrier shelter. So at KLWY, you have to be sober in order to stay there. And not everybody's ready to make that choice. A lot of people say that not knowing where their next meal will come from, not knowing where they're going to stay causes people stress, causes them to use alcohol and drugs. And so by creating a low barrier shelter, it's a place where people who are not violent, but maybe still be doing some drinking, would be able to find a safe place to live. And then their social workers can work with them and hopefully bring them out into sobriety and then into stable housing. And so we're working right now with the KLWY shelter to try to figure out how we're going to do that. And we're planning on using some of our ARPA dollars maybe to fund that effort. And we're really looking forward to making that effort and hopefully being very successful. Well, they're human beings. We want to have them in a safe place to live. But also, we also want to make sure that we're not the vandalism in the parks, in the depot area, in our parking garages. We'd like to give them a place to live, so they're not vandalizing, trying to find a place to live, out in downtown and under the bridges and places like that. So it's important to take care of them as people, but we're also looking to take care of the community and some of the damage that living homeless in the city causes. Yeah, so I think one of the things that will really help our downtown be more successful and more vibrant is getting people to live and to stay downtown. And so exciting for me this last week was a developer who came, who owns a piece of property just north of the Rib and Chop House. That's a vacant parking lot right now, with the idea of building a 120-room, kind of a high-end hotel to service the downtown, the government, all of Cheyenne. But I'm really excited about the fact of getting 120 people a day living, working downtown, shopping, going to our restaurants and bars. I think it will really help create that lift to help our downtown be more successful. I think so. You know, we are the capital. We have all of the governmental agencies, and it'll be nice to have a hotel that can complement what we have and be kind of that focal point in our downtown. Yeah, you know, so we have more than 3,000 hotel rooms now, but in talking to our travel people, we don't have enough. And we have the ability to bring large events, large conferences here, but we don't have enough hotel rooms. So, you know, add this to it will help, but also having it where it's located in downtown will be a huge success for us.